After playing most of the mainline titles, with Ultra Moon being my last challenge, as it is considered the hardest vanilla Pokemon game there is, I hungered for more of a challenge. I decided to dip my toes in the world of ROM hacks by playing what I believe is the first commonly known difficulty ROM hack there is, created by the godfather of ROM hacks Drayano, Firered Omega. Drayano is a well-known ROM hack creator, with this being his earliest creation back in 2013. There is an updated version, I know, but I wanted the taste of what Gen 3 had to offer, faults and all, and get a taste of what ROM hacks were back in the day. The increased difficulty, along with using a hardcore Nuzlocke Ruleset, is what I hope will satiate my hunger for challenge. That's why today, you will witness my first ever attempt at a Pokemon ROM hack. Will I win? Will I wipe? Will you just skip to the end of the video to see? Maybe. All I can do is tell you my journey. My name is Codemaster Zach, and this is my attempt at hardcore Nuzlocking Firered Omega. Starting the game is the same as any Firered playthrough. I wake up in Pallet Town, try to leave and explore, but get told by Professor Oak that it's not safe and I need a Pokemon to help me through the grass. He offers me one of 3 starter Pokemon, but this is where the changes begin. Instead of the normal Kanto starters, Drayano has changed them to 3 of the baby Pokemon instead, Magby, Elekid, and Smoochum. Not only that, but Drayano has buffed the stats and abilities of the baby Pokemon and their evolutions to make them more viable. Just a few of the many changes in this version made to make more challenging, but also more Pokemon viable for use. All 3 starters are good choices, but I choose Elekid as I think it will be a good matchup against Misty, as well as a personal favorite of mine. This gives my rival Kaz Smoochum. The first fight against Kaz is easy, that lets me keep the Oran Berry Elekid has. As a plus, Elekid has the modest nature, plus special attack minus attack. Since Gen 3 doesn't have this physical special split for moves, this Elekid will become a powerhouse once he evolves and gets the elemental punches. Once I get Pokeballs, I can now start catching some other teammates. There's a lot of Pokemon available in ROM hacks, so I won't go over everyone. At the start, I catch a Pidgey on Route 1, and I get the gift Trico on Route 2. This game also gives you the starters for the first 3 generations at various routes. Picking up Trico means I don't get the gift Torchic on this route, but for what I'm about to face with Brock, I need a rock counter. On 22, I catch a Sentret, unfortunately not buffed in this game, but can be useful. In a newly added grass patch in Viridian City, I catch a Houndour, and in Viridian Forest, I catch a Bellsprout. In Pure City, I complete the Fire, Grass, Water trio by getting the gift Mudkip. With all my potential encounters caught, time for the first gym leader of Firered Omega, Brock. This is what his team is in Vanilla Firered, and this is what it is in Firered Omega. The most significant change made in this ROM hack is that all gym leaders now have a full team of 6. Brock in this case has some significant rock and ground types, as well as his anime-accurate Vulpix to spam Confuse Ray and Hypnosis. Pokemon are also added to other major rival fights, but the gym leaders are where the buffs are on showcase here. Brock stands as the first check to see if I decided to take the Trico and Mudkip to help take him on and hope the rest of my team can support. Brock leads with Geodude and I lead with Bellsprout. Bellsprout easily KOs Geodude and chain kills the incoming Rhyhorn with a Vine Whip. Bellsprout also learns Sleep Powder with the level up. I try to Sleep Powder Vulpix, but instead I get put to sleep by the Vulpix instead. I switch to Houndour on an incoming Confuse Ray, where Houndour proceeds to hit himself 2 times in a row while taking an Ember and dodging another Hypnosis. Being low on HP, I try to get Bellsprout to wake up while Vulpix sets up a substitute. Bellsprout takes about half HP on an Ember, and without risking a crit, I switch into Elekid on another Confuse Ray. Not risking another hit on Confuse Ray, I switch back into Bellsprout to shake off the confusion and barely live the Ember that comes out. I switch back into Elekid on an Ember so I can finally break Vulpix's substitute with a Thundershock as Elekid gets put back to sleep. Not waking up in time, Vulpix lands a critical hit Ember which forces me to switch into Mudkip on this annoying Vulpix. As he gets confused yet again, I continue my string of bad luck and he hits himself in confusion and gets put to sleep yet again. Luckily, Mudkip is holding an Oran Berry so he can stay in longer than his other teammates. Once Mudkip wakes up, he hits himself one more time before finally dodging an Hypnosis and landing a Water Gun. It puts Vulpix into heal range, which allows me to snap out of confusion and land another Water Gun. Dodging one more Hypnosis finally lets Mudkip KO with one more Water Gun. I switch into Trico on a Rock Tomb that luckily misses, and when Absorb doesn't KO, Trico dodges yet another Rock Tomb. Finally, some good RNG. Trico KOs Kabuto and luckily KOs the Ammonite with a critical hit Absorb. Finally is Brock's Onix. Now, I thought Trico would have been faster, but I underestimated how speedy Onix is at this point in the game. Onix goes and swaggers Trico, but luckily I bring Onix to half HP with Absorb. Onix unfortunately regains it back with a Citrus Berry. I have no other choice than to keep on clicking Absorb as my only other Pokemon not damaged is Pidgey, which is clearly not going to stand against this Rock Snake. Onix paralyzes Trico with Dragon Breath, but luckily Trico hits through, bringing Onix back down to half. I get unlucky on the next turn with the Paralysis, and as Onix goes for Dragon Breath again, Trico breaks through Paralysis and Confusion for the KO. First badge now in the bag. I will say this battle is less difficult as it was more annoying with the Sleep and Confusion moves on his Pokemon. I sure hope this trend won't keep coming back. Making my way forward, I evolve some of my teammates and catch some new encounters. On Route 3 I catch an Electrike, I buy a Magikarp on Route 4, and at the basement of Mount Moon I was hoping for a Bagon but instead got Slugma. Saving grace is that Slugma and Magcargo got some well needed buffs this game, so not terrible. Before I leave Mount Moon, I make the only right choice and take the Helix fossil from the scientist. Once I get to Cerulean City, I could get more encounters past Nugget Bridge, but this requires a rival fight to pass first. I decided to take my chances with my current teammates to take on Misty first so I get more of a level advantage against Kaz. Here's her team, by the way, compared to her vanilla team. Much more threatening, and more accurate. Facing off against Misty, I lead with Elekid and she leads with Staryu. Elekid now knows Thunder Punch and easily KOs Staryu, Psyduck, and Seadra. Unfortunately, I get poisoned by Seadra's Poison Point as Love Disc comes in. Since Love Disc has been buffed as well, she outspeeds and attracts my sweet Elekid. Luckily, he ain't no simp and lands a Thunder Punch for about 3/4. I then get scared about a heal turn, getting immobilized, and Poison Chip, so I switch an Electrike on a Water Pulse. I then make another bad decision and try to Thunder Wave instead of damage with Spark that could have killed. Electrike gets confused and luckily Thunder Wave breaks through. The reason this was bad is because Misty has a full heal, so this turn was basically useless and risky. I decided to instead switching Gyarados on a surprising Water Pulse. The next 2 turns, I don't know what I was thinking. Instead of trying to KO, I decided to Splash and then missed out on a KO with Tackle, while Love Disc boosts her speed with 2 agilities. Now, she will heal with a Super Potion while I think I can outspeed and hope for a full paralysis by KOing with Electrike. Instead, due to the agilities, Love Disc still outspeeds and KOs Electrike with a Water Pulse, leading to the first death of the run. I can't mourn yet, as I still have to find a way to deal with this Love Disc and her 2 other teammates in the back. Electric Death at least gives me a free switch into Elekid, who does outspeed and hits Love Disc with 2 Thunder Punches for the KO. I take 1 more Water Pulse, and with Poison Chip forces me to switch out as Starmie comes in. Grovyle can luckily slowly chip away at Starmie, using Absorb while dodging full paralysis and confusion hits. Starmie's Citrus Berry brings it back to near full, but as Grovyle gets dangerously low on HP, I pivot through Gyarados to bait Shockwave instead of Water Pulse as I bring in Weeping Bell. All I can do now is Vine Whip to take down the Starmie after Misty uses another heal. I get lucky as Starmie brings Weeping Bell down to 1 HP before we take the KO with a final Vine Whip. Last is her Togetic that causes a lot of randomness with Metronome. I bring in Firered to try and whittle down Togetic's HP. Firered gets Thunder Wave as I go for quick attacks to deal damage. I get unlucky as Metronome rolls a Brick Break on my little Weasel. On the next turn, I lucky dodge a crit Mega Horn, bringing Firered into the red. Switching in Gyarados on a Magical Leaf, Tackle isn't enough for KO as we get paralyzed. I need to dodge 1 more Metronome roll, praying for no electric move, and luckily, just a Hypnosis comes out and misses, letting Gyarados take the final KO and awarding us with the 2nd Gym Badge. As Elekid evolves into the much better Electabuzz, I decided that I need to start using a calculator to avoid further losses. This was too close for comfort, and a few ill-timed crits could have easily caused a wipe. I need to plan against these gym leaders better as I can to avoid worse RNG. I now take on Kaz Electabuzz and sweep through his entire team with ease. Thunder Punch clears through all 4 of his Pokemon. I've been neglecting a lot of the trainer battles in this game, as there's nothing special about them. Drayano gave them some extra teammates from other generations, but as far as I can tell, unless it's an ace trainer, they simply have only level up movesets, making them more tedious than difficult. I will try to avoid any optional trainers to avoid unnecessary risks, as well as minimize the amount of EVs my Pokemon will receive. Once past Nugget Bridge, I take the Gift Cyndaquil on Route 24, and in Cerulean City, past the Robbed House, I can get the other Johto starter Totodile. Route 5, I pick up a Meowth, and I complete the Johto trio with the Chikorita in Underground Tunnel. The last few encounters before SSN include a Guts Talo, a soon-to-be godly Feebas, a useless Dunsparce, and a cute little Horsey. Before Surge, I must get the Cut TM from the SSN captain who is currently being guarded by Kaz. Kaz now has more evolved Pokemon, making him much more of a threat. Is what I would say if Electabuzz and Houndoom didn't just counter his entire team. I collect whatever items I can in SSN before starting to prep for Surge. Surge's team is full of fast or bulky electric types that can hit hard and paralyze my entire team if not careful. My only saving grace is that Marshtomp is part ground type for damaging and pivoting. Starting the battle, I send out Marshtomp as he sends out Flaffy. After some healing and several mud shots, Marshtomp takes the KO. Next comes in Chinchou, where I have a plan to switch into Bayleaf to save health on Marshtomp for later. Bayleaf gets confused and paralyzed, but he luckily hits a poison powder, and now I just need to make sure Bayleaf can get off his synthesis to keep healthy. Bayleaf can then take out the Chinchou while healthy with a magical leaf. This baits out Manectric with Flamethrower, where I can pivot Gyarados in to bring Electabuzz out on a resisted shockwave. He gets one Ice Punch off before getting paralyzed and needing to switch out. I bring in Houndoom to do some more damage with Bite and risk a crit shockwave to take the KO. Now comes in Raichu, and with Houndoom so low, he is going for a random move. I gamble he is not going for Shockwave and bring in Gyarados, to which I was right. This allows me to bring in Marshtomp again for free with full health. Raichu doesn't see Surf as most damage, so goes for a Focus Punch twice. The second one never lands, as our dig crits, giving Marshtomp the one-hit KO against Surge's Ace. Unfortunately, Marshtomp still gets paralyzed from static, as Jolteon now comes in. One dig after a full paralysis gets the one shot, and now is Surge's final Pokemon Magneton. Hidden Power does more damage than I expected, and on 1 HP, Marshtomp finally breaks through paralysis for the KO and the third badge. Even with the calculator, this was still very messy, and the theme of spamming status conditions is still very much apparent. A few bad RNG rolls on paralysis would have easily caused us to lose a Pokemon there. Hopefully, we continue to scale after this gym. Catching this Voltorb is not one of the better encounters on this run. What does help is this game allowing us access to Milotic at level 20 when involving Feebas for a water type with a move a little bit better than Water Gun, as well as a godly encounter that is Beldum in Rock Tunnel after Repel manipulation. This is much better than the gift Charmander I could have gotten instead. I also take the gift Bulbasaur in Route 9 for yet another grass Pokemon. I might have forgot to mention that I take the gift encounter Squirtle in Vermilion City as well. Once I reach Lavender Town, I hatch the egg I received all the way back in Peter City into the support Togepi. My luck streak continues as I encounter and catch the elusive Abra on Route 8. I will talk more later about this guy. The Skiploom on Route 7 and the gift Eevee in Celadon City cap off all the potential encounters before the next fight with Erica. Once again, I choose to fight Erica first before Rocket Hideout to increase the level cap, making Giovanni much easier. Erica's team is very scary, as many of the grass moves have been buffed in this ROM hack, and with 3 of her Pokemon having Sleep Powder, I need to be sure I don't get, caught sleeping. Erica starts off with Victory Bell, and I lead with Swellow, who has been pre-burned to trigger his Guts ability. I missed the range on the first attack, but Victory Bell just sets up Swords Dance to let me KO on the second attack. As you can see, I'm now edging my teammates up to level cap so that once they get a KO, they get one more level during the fight, as the level cap is broken after I start the battle. Erica then sends in Ludicolo threatening with Thunder Punch. Swellow at this level has an 87.5% chance to KO with a wing attack. Ludicolo doesn't always KO Swellow with Thunder Punch, so I go for the wing attack, and we hit the range. 2 down. Blissey comes in and I switch Metang in to deal against her Ice Beams. I get paralyzed again, but can get the KO with 2 Brick Breaks. Jumpluff comes out, most likely because it has the fire move Sunny Day. I'm not entirely sure what move this Jumpluff is going for, but I know I can lock it into a non-damage move with Encore from Togetic. During the switch, Togetic takes a Leech Seed, and then Togetic locks Jumpluff into Sunny Day. I can then switch Electabuzz in, shaking off the Leech Seed, and start spamming Thunder Wave as I wait for the sun to wear off. Once the sun is faded, I can Ice Punch for the KO so that now Electabuzz is full health as Vileplume comes in. An Ice Punch deals just above half as he takes a massive Sludge Bomb. The follow-up Fire Punch kills, but now the next big threat, Blossom, comes in. Blossom has a terrifying set of reducing damage with Charm, healing with Leech Seed and Synthesis, then firing back massive damage with the buffed moves Leaf Blade. I can't keep Electabuzz in, so I switch into Togetic, set up a Wish, then switch into Kolava on the Leaf Blade. That also crits, but Wish brings him nearly back to full HP. I then outspeed and go for Flame Wheel, but am surprised by the amount of damage it actually did. I was playing a lot with the calculator and must have kept Sun on without realizing, boosting the Flame Wheel's damage without realizing it. Kolava gets Leech Seeded, and with the Bellossom going for Synthesis and Leech Seed chip, Kolava is getting dangerously low, even after the Oran Berry proc. I'm clearly not in range of a KO, and with one look at my team, no one other than Persian can take a Leaf Blade from this Bellossom. The unfortunate part is I only brought Persian since it had Cut TM, where a proper 5th Pokemon could have saved us from a death. Instead, Persian is my least useful Pokemon, and I bring her in as a sacrifice to this demon. The sacrifice is not in vain though, as it allows me to bring back in Swellow to finish it off with one more wing attack. The 4th gym badge in hand, I felt a lot better about this battle, and if I can just be more aware of what my calculator is telling me, then I think the next fights I can get away without any deaths. Either way, Erica signifies the end of the early game, and now I head into the long and arduous mid game. Time to scale. Going into the mid game, I noticed my Electabuzz ability switch from static to Volt Absorb at some point. No other Pokemon had their abilities changed, so I guess it had something to do with PK Hex, which I was using to edge my Pokemon. Doesn't make much of a difference, luckily, as we are past Electric Gym Leader. The remainder of Celadon is to get many of the TMs and items from Game Corner to buff my team and then clear out Rocket Hideout. With the increased level cap between Erica and Koga, I can now evolve many of my Pokemon to their final stage evolutions. This includes my Abra turning into Alakazam, who in Firered Omega now learns the Elemental Punches. There is no physical special split yet, so these punches uses Alakazam's huge special attack stat, making him a speedy, versatile threat against many of these grunts and other trainers. Giovanni is much easier to handle now with the increased level cap, and with our evolved Pokemon, TMs from the store, and Game Corner, as well as a more gracious level advantage, we run through Kaz's entire team as well with ease in Pokemon Tower. Now that I have access to Pokemon Tower, I can catch my one and only ghost type this run, a Shuppet. I then use my newly acquired Shuppet to catch the always superb encounter Snorlax. This Snorlax will give me some cheesy methods you will see shortly. In Fuchsia City, I get the gifted Lapras and go on an encounter catching spree since I now have access to the routes on either side of Fuchsia City. Nothing notable is caught, but what will help is going to be the Dupes Claws. At this point, I am getting so many encounters that I start organizing my boxes into Pokemon I actually will use and ones that will be boxed forever. I am finally hitting that critical mass where I have an answer to almost every challenge that comes my way. Prepping for Koga, I remembered a forgotten mechanic in Gen 3 called Badge Boost. It's where certain badges earned boost all of our teammates' stats in battle, but it's not shown in the stat screen. In the calculator, I can turn it on and off as I get more badges. The reason why this is important is Surge gave me the badge that boosts all my Pokemon speed, as I was seeing that my Alakazam didn't outspeed Koga's Crobat, until I turned on the badge boost. With that extra speed, I lead with Alakazam as Koga brings out Weezing. Alakazam chain kills the Weezing, Venomoth, Crobat, and Fortress. When Koga brings out Tentacruel, there is not a lot of risk in setting up one Calm Mind on Alakazam as Tentacruel whiffs a Miracle Coat. With that one Calm Mind, Alakazam KOs the Tentacruel and also Electrode with Twisted Spoon. As a note, my Alakazam has a plus special attacking nature, and without it, there would have probably been some ranges that he wouldn't have been able to take kills on. This one Pokemon sweep really boosted my confidence at this point and has given me more experience in handling the increased difficulty. I don't catch anything notable between Fuchsia and Silph, so let's cut to the next Rabble fight. The level cap is a little more tight this time around, so I have to be very careful about what level I fight at. Kaz starts with a Crobat, so just like Koga, I take the KO with my Alakazam. Ampharos comes in and I freely switch into Swampert. After a dig takes the knockout, Swampert can continue his streak and dig again on the Houndoom. Next comes Kaz's own Alakazam, which is a bit gimmicky. This Alakazam holds a choice band and wants to use Trick to swap the band for my own. This is where Snorlax comes in. He can hold no item and instead use Covet to steal the choice band as Alakazam is stuck in Trick. I only have to Covet once, then take the KO afterwards with a now choice banded boosted Shadow Ball. As Kaz's final Pokemon Jinx comes out, I can easily switch to Metagross to take the final KO. There are plenty of other items in this game that trainers will have that I can cover from. I did have a Thief TM, but I put that on for Wild Pokemon's items and berries. The ending of Silph culminates in a boss battle against Giovanni. This time is much scarier because Giovanni, as noted in the docs, has random AI. It's proven since as I go for Dig with Typhlosion, he goes for the 2-turn move Solar Beam with Houndoom. Luckily, the switch-in AI isn't random, so I can still predict what is going to come in next, such as his next heavy hitter, Nidoking. I switch into Milotic and take a big Mega Horn. We can then outspeed and KO with Surf. Rhyhorn is next and also falls to a quad super effective Surf. When Flygon comes in, I hope that he doesn't go for the most damaging move Earthquake, and luckily I am right. She shakes off a weak Fire Blast and get the KO with an Ice Beam. Now comes the trickiest Pokemon on Giovanni's team, Cloyster. This Cloyster knows Explosion and can KO almost every Pokemon in my box if it crits. The only Pokemon that can survive a first turn Explosion and KO the Cloyster is my defensive Metagross. I switch in Metagross and Cloyster does go for Explosion turn 1. Luckily, no crit, and based on the damage, it was a low roll, so we would have survived either way. Last is Giovanni's signature Persian, and for this guy, we bring in, for the first debut ever, Magcargo. With the buffs, Rock typing for resistance, and Recover, this guy can easily stall and KO this Persian without any issues. 2 Flamethrowers after waking up from sleep easily KO the Persians, ending off the Rocket storyline. After Silphco, I can move right on to Sabrina's Psychic-type gym. Her Psychic types can do massive damage if unchecked, and her first Baton Pass Calm Mind Mr. Mime can be a brutal setup Pokemon. However, I have my own setup to counteract with. I do the Snorlax as Mr. Mime starts off with a Calm Mind. I start off with a Belly Drum maxing out Snorlax's attack stat. Mr. Mime gets greedy and goes for a second Calm Mind while Snorlax goes for a rest. With a held Chesto-Berry, Snorlax is now at max attack, fully healed, and awake to start doing some massive damage. If not evident already, Shadow Ball is a physical move in this generation, so now Snorlax can fire off max attack Shadow Balls into all of Sabrina's team. Snorlax just has to hold out long enough since he is slower than all of her Pokemon. Mr. Mime goes down first, followed by Gardevoir, and then Espeon gets off one Psychic before also going down. The sweep gets stopped as Gengar hits a Hypnosis, putting Snorlax to sleep. Gengar then sets up Substitute and begins hitting Psychics, including getting a special defense drop. With rest and unlucky sleep turns, I need to find a way to get Snorlax at high enough health for when Jinx comes in later. The best way I can see is to remove the special defense drop by switching into Houndoom on the Psychic. Houndoom can break Substitute with a Bite and then switch Snorlax in on Ice Punch. Since Snorlax is thick fat, Ice Punch does very little damage. After taking one Psychic, I go back to full health via another rest. I begin stalling Gengar out of Psychics so that the only attacking move it has left is Ice Punch, by clicking rest on each sleep turn to keep Snorlax healthy. Once Gengar's out of Psychics and starts Ice Punching, she does so little damage that I can set up Belly Drum again. Gengar hits another Hypnosis and I click rest on the wake up turn just as Snorlax falls into the red. Now, all that Snorlax has to do is land one Shadow Ball to break the Substitute and one more for the KO. Snorlax gets the first Shadow Ball, but Hypnosis prevents the second one from landing, forcing more damage on Snorlax. Luckily, with no sub, when he does wake up, he takes the KO. In comes Jinx with a very threatening Psycho Boost. At Snorlax's HP, I do risk a crit KO, but the reward will be ever sweet. Jinx goes for the Psycho Boost, and Snorlax holds luckily, and looking at the numbers, it was a low roll that Snorlax probably could have lived if it crit. The reward is that Covet both KOs the Jinx and gets our first set of leftovers, a very powerful item in Nuzlocke that allows us to get back HP. Finally is Sabrina's Ace Alakazam, but our Eevee, now evolved into the defensive Umbreon, can easily withstand Alakazam's attacks and KO with 2 Shadow Balls. I am now becoming incredibly confident to beat this game, not only in one attempt, but with no more than 2 deaths. Unfortunately, famous last words. Nothing significant happens before Blaine revived Omanyte at Cinnabar Island and gets some very underwhelming encounters that will be boxed forever. I will also add that even in this ROM hack, Blaine isn't particularly difficult or interesting either. Looking at the calcs and my team, I find another one Pokemon sweep. All that is needed to beat Blaine is a Kingdra with Swift Swim, Rain Dance, Surf, and leftovers. On turn 1, Kingdra takes an extreme speed and sets up the rain. Until the rain ends, Kingdra can chain kill Arcanine, Ninetales, Typhlosion, and Solrock. The rain ends when Blaziken comes out, and since I've been getting HP back from leftovers, Kingdra can safely set up another Rain Dance and survive a potential critical hit from Sky Uppercut, then finish off the Blaziken and the falling Magmar with 2 more Surfs. On to the endgame. But before we can take on the 8th gym leader, I decided to take a bit of vacation by doing the Sevi Islands portion of the game. Not much has changed except for the slightly modified trainer teams and the inclusion of the legendary doggos in this area. Sorry Raikou, maybe another game I will catch you. I also catch a whole set of new encounters that are all irrelevant except for one, but I won't reveal them till later. Once done, I begin planning for the 8th gym leader, Giovanni. Giovanni has a much more threatening team compared to the last 3 gym leaders. Tyranitar with Dragon Dance, Swampert, Earthquake, Rest, and Leftovers, Rhydon with Substitute to mitigate damage. All very threatening Pokemon if I leave unchecked. Still coming off the high of using Swift Swim Kingdra, looking back, I think I tried too hard to force Kingdra as a possible solution, since Swift Swim boosted Surfs works well into a lot of his Pokemon. This puts me into a tunnel mindset that creates a very risky situation, as you'll see. Starting the battle, Giovanni leads with Flygon and I lead with Kingdra. Kingdra gets hit by an Earthquake as we set up a Rain Dance. On the next turn, Kingdra can outspeed and KO with Ice Beam. Now it starts to go haywire. I expected Rhydon or Persian to come out, but instead out comes Tyranitar and removes the rain with a Sandstorm. If I leave this Tyranitar to set up too much with Dragon Dance, then I most definitely wipe. I could set up again with Rain Dance, but if Tyranitar decides to attack with Hyper Beam instead of setting up, then Kingdra dies. My best course of action is to bring in Metagross, as even if he does set up, Metagross can KO with Choice Band Brick Break. Tyranitar does set up, and I have to risk a crit now against this +1 Tyranitar. Luckily, Tyranitar gets greedy and goes for a second Dragon Dance, and we slow kill with Brick Break. Out comes Rhydon, and since we are locked into Brick Break, which doesn't KO, I switch into Meganium as Rhydon goes for Substitute. Breaking Stud with Magical Leaf and barely surviving a Mega Horn, Rhydon falls. Next is Persian, who luckily also takes Sandstorm Chip. At this point, I'm steering as Meganium was meant to be my answer in Swampert, but now he is going to be benched for the rest of the battle. I switch back into Metagross on a resisted Double Edge. Metagross takes one more Double Edge as we take yet another kill with Brick Break. Swampert now comes and threatens with an Earthquake, but luckily Snorlax can switch in, take an Earthquake, then take a Hydro Cannon, then snag one more set of leftovers with Covet. Snorlax can't stay in, so I switch into the first debut of Water Absorb Lapras. It pays off immediately by switching in on Hydro Cannon, and after taking an Earthquake, can finally remove the Sandstorm with Rain Dance. This also helps as Lapras' Surfs do a lot more damage now. However, before I can take the KO, Giovanni does the rare AI switch into Cacturn, as it probably saw Surf as being resisted. Luckily, Lapras outspeeds and KOs with an Ice Beam. Back comes in Swampert, but now at low HP it goes for Rest and I make a careless risk. Looking back, I clearly had the win with Perish Song after KOing Cacturn, but instead I went for pure damage with Surf, and since Rain ended, Surf no longer 2-hit kills. Now that Giovanni used her full restore to get Swampert back to full and awake, Lapras will start taking more and more damage from Earthquakes. I can't even switch as my team is already very low from the previous battles. It also doesn't help when Earthquake crits bringing Lapras into the yellow. Looking at my team, Metagross is at high enough HP to survive a non-crit Earthquake, then outspeed and take the KO. Metagross switches in, and luckily no crit. One Shadow Ball gets me the 8th and final gym badge. I almost forgot how wild this game can be, and it is a good wake-up call before the Elite Four. There is one final rival battle before the Elite Four, which at the final level cap is not too bad. Kaz's Venusaur was being difficult by landing 3 out of 5 Frenzy Plants, which is now 50% accurate but 170 base power, but otherwise another easy win. In Victory Road, however, the trainers are not as easy since their teams have been buffed and typically ace trainers will have better AI than others. I avoid most of them, but on one team that consists of 5 starters, I have to deal with yet another Frenzy Plant Venusaur. This time, he lands 4 Frenzy Plants, with the 4th one being a critical hit and KOing my defensive Umbreon all the way from full HP. This was annoying, but entirely my fault, as I didn't have any better answers into this Venusaur and could have prepped better. Stupid that out of the 3 deaths so far, 1 was from a random trainer in Victory Road right near the end. Catching my last encounter, a Machoke in Victory Road, it's now time for the Elite Four. As with the trend of this ROM hack, the Elite Four teams have been buffed to have a full team of 6 and in most cases, add diversity to make it a little more thematic and threatening. Lorelei has a Perish Song Protect Wigglytuff to force switches, Bruno has a Hitmontop with Endeavor and Focus Band to drop my Pokemon's health to 1 HP, and Agatha and Lance have their own gimmicks. When I first started this challenge, I was intimidated by this Elite Four and the difficulty curve, but now, after taking on this game's challenging fights, I can see the path forward. Let's hope I can best this game in the end. For the Elite Four, I will bring 5 familiar faces and one that will get their first ever debut out of the box. First off is Maxor, our starter the Electabuzz. With his buff stats and moveset, he'll be putting in a lot of work. Next, we have Ursus, the Metagross. No comments are needed for the pseudo-legendary, especially with the pre-steel nerf this generation. Zamul the Houndoom has been with us since the very beginning before Brock, and his Fired Dark type will play well into Agatha and other counters. The Brock and Surge savior Relum, the Swampert, comes in providing a very useful Water Ground type to take damage and dish it right back. Another favorite is Nazarin the Alakazam, fast setup sweeper if I can find the right Pokemon to set up on. And for the 6th team member is the unusual Minari, the Altaria. I brought him in for one and only one reason only, which you'll see very soon. This is it. No more planning, no more calculations. 5 fights to claim victory. Let's boogie. Lorelei is one of the easier fights. Electabuzz with a held magnet can easily one-hit KO all of Lorelei's Pokemon up to Wigglytuff. A Thunderbolt brings Wigglytuff to about a quarter while she goes for Perish Song, putting Electabuzz on a timer. After the KO, her final Pokemon Lapras comes out. Electabuzz nearly gets the KO with Thunderbolt as Lapras retaliates with a Hydro Pump. Now, on the final turn of Perish Song and expecting to heal, I switch to Metagross, who with a Choice Band can click Brick Break twice and get the win. After another full restore, of course, from Lorelei. 1 down, 4 to go. Next up is Bruno. If you didn't notice, I gave Alakazam the XP share last battle to get him up to level 70 for this fight. That's because at level 70, Alakazam always one-hit KOs the lead Steelix with a Fire Punch. I hope to see Hitmontop next, but Donphan comes out instead. I switch from Alakazam into Swampert on an Earthquake. After a Protect to get some leftover recovery, he takes the KO with a single Surf. Almaldo comes out next, and after healing and taking a few surfs, once again does the rare AI switch into Water Absorb Poliwrath. Now, this might have been bad, except for the fact Poliwrath's moveset is not very good. So bad, in fact, that I can switch in Alakazam with confidence as he cannot crit kill with any of his moves. We dodge one Hypnosis, and with that, Psychic sweeps the rest of Bruno's team. 2 down, 3 to go. Agatha comes up next with her Leech Ninja as I lead with Electabuzz. Fire Punch takes the KO and I luckily don't proc Focus Band. Crobat comes in and also dies to a single Thunderbolt. Sableye is a little harder to KO and takes a few Thunderbolts after a full restore. Next is the gimmicky Mischievous with no attacking moves but can lock in a Pokemon with Meanlook and take them out with Parasong or Destiny Bond. This is why Houndoom is such a good counter, as he can come in on a taunt then outspeeding KO with Crunch before Meanlook or Destiny Bond become a problem. Houndoom is also fast enough to easily outspeed her Gengar for the one-shot, then two-shot her final Hypno. 3 down, 2 to go. Last in the Elite Four lineup is Lance, with crazy strong Pokemon like Salamence, Dragonites, and Gyarados. Watch this amazing fight as I fight tooth and nail to beat his amazing team. Yeah, turns out that when you have a buff, speedy, modest Electabuzz with Ice Punch and Thunderbolt, Lance is a bit of a joke. Elite Four down, only a champion awaits. Whether I win or lose, the run ends here. Kaz leads with the Heracross, as I lead with the ever-trusted Alakazam. Alakazam one-hit KOs the Heracross with a Psychic, and Kaz sends out his Ampharos threatening the Signal Beam. I swap into Swampert on a setup of Tail Glow. Too bad he won't ever be able to use it, as Swampert outspeeds and one-shots with an Earthquake. In comes Venusaur, which is the sole reason why I brought Altaria to this fight. Venusaur only knows one attacking move, which is the bane of my existence, Frenzy Plant. Altaria can easily take hits from the Frenzy Plant and at the same time set up with Dragon Dances. Venusaur does put Altaria to sleep many times, but with Leftovers recovery, he can manage. It takes a while, and Altaria takes a lot of damage due to Leech Seed over time, but eventually at +5 attack and speed, an Aerial Ace one-shots the Venusaur and outspeeds the following Jinx to one-shot with another Aerial Ace. Metagross comes in, and looking back, if I put Earthquake on Altaria, this easily could have been another KO. I switch in Swampert on a resistant Meteor Mash, but as long as he doesn't get the attack boost, this is very manageable. Well, crap. This is okay. Swampert can still two-shot with Earthquakes and get back to full health with Leftovers. Now, this is bad. I'm currently staring down a +1 attack pseudo-legendary that can easily KO the rest of my team if I'm not careful. Any more attack boost will be devastating, and if he sets up agility, then it's a wipe. Houndoom can outspeed, but doesn't always kill with Flamethrower, and Kaz still has his own Houndoom in the back that I need to worry about after I'm through with Metagross. I see the way out, but it's not pretty. I send out Alakazam and pray that he can stay alive by critting with Fire Punch. Otherwise, Alakazam goes down. And unfortunately, that's exactly what happens. Alakazam deals just enough damage with Fire Punch that after Metagross kills Alakazam, Houndoom comes in to finish the job. Finally, it's a mirror match to see whose Houndoom is the best. We are faster and land a few Flamethrowers before switching into Electabuzz for the final KO and beating my first ever attempt at Firered Omega. This game is great. I had so much fun playing it, and the different enemy varieties as well as catchable Pokemon is why so many people love these ROM hacks. I started making videos because I wanted to try out these ROM hacks that I always see from other Nuzlockers and just how much fun they've been having, and I was not let down. I said at the beginning that I hungered for more of a challenge with Pokemon games, and now that I've had a taste, I definitely will keep wanting more of these amazing and often difficult ROM hacks to complete. It may not be like the infamous Run and Bun, but everyone starts somewhere, and this here, I think, is my beginning to more and more challenging games. Thank you all for watching to the end, and if you liked what you saw, let me know down below. It's been a pleasure, and we'll see you all on the next challenge.